Welcome to the Recovery Lab podcast. We're glad you were able to join us. Recovery Lab hopes to destigmatize addiction and normalize recovery.
Our platform provides an avenue to share the many stories of those that have recovered from addiction, providing for the listener the most basic antidote to addiction: hope.
All right, everybody, we're back. This is episode number 95 of the Recovery Lab podcast series. So we offer a little bit of a change today. Daniel and I have a new co-host, guest host.
Absolutely.
What was your name again? David Sugg. Dave, what's shaking, man?
Hey, man, glad to be here. Thanks
Good
for
to
having
see
me.
you.
Yeah.
So David and I go way back. He is my ex-wife's brother. And we have lived together and grown together, and it has been a joy to see how your life has unfolded. Really, like in the darkest times of mine, I thought, if David can do it, I can do it.
Amen. That's right.
If David can get his act together and can overcome some of the addiction consequences, then I can too. And I held on to that hard. When I was in Loosedale, the last treatment center I went to, with no hope, no money, no options, no nothing. And I thought, well, if David can do it, I can do it.
Anybody should be able to.
I can figure out a way.
Yeah.
And I think that probably is a pretty significant beacon for other people. Yeah. We don't exactly go to the same meetings or see the same people, but I bet that is a light for other people in the recovery community. Yeah. Seeing you stick it out. And
Yeah, it's actually been January 8th will be 15 years to the day.
Wow.
You pulled up in the parking lot of the Pokey and busted me out.
15 years.
15 years to the day. And I remember Christiana asking, like, you want to take a shower? And I was still so pent up. I was like, what are you talking about? No, I want to get something to eat and relax. Like, I took offense, and she was like, you smell like jail, son. And it's like, I was so mad. I was just like, and I stayed that mad for like 6 months. I mean, it was just a ball of angst. I mean, and you loved me. You took care of me. You carried me to meetings. You got me food, shoes, clothing, a phone. I had a $200 laptop or something. You're like, here's the internet, son. It's like, nice. I mean,
that little bitty laptop.
Yeah. Smaller than a phone. But I remember my first job at Beagle Bagel. I think you carry me up there like, this lady will give you a job. And I mean, my first check was negative because I had to pay for a T-shirt. Yeah, it was brutal. Just
rough.
That was 15 years ago.
God. Time flies, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh.
Well, the upside to that is, in only 15 years, look at what has been accomplished.
No kidding. Yeah.
So just so the listeners know, before we started this, whatever camera's looking at me, before we started today's episode, Daniel had texted both of us asking for suggested topics. And one of them was how MAT can be overused and probably not properly administered. Another was the growing of the recovery support community. I have been in recovery since 1995 here in Jackson.
Was that when you went through Baptist?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
And it wasn't until, I think the first time I ever heard of a sober living house is when you said you were going to build one and then did. That house that, I mean, it only barely qualified.
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah, this is the way.
Yeah.
And I had not ever heard of Oxford House. I had not ever heard of, what are those other ones? What's the one Jody and Johnny Jerfitz.
Linwood. Yeah.
Didn't know about an Alex Cole. Didn't know about that. And really only learned about Oxford House probably a year or two after that.
Yeah.
So there really is I wish that I went to Yana. And for people that don't know, Yana's a local house that has AA meetings. I wish I went there so I could see what life is like now because a lot of other people are sober now.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are people that I know that are sober that I knew from using, and it's like nobody goes harder than that person did. And I wonder what the impact of that is. Like there doesn't seem to be nearly the stigma, nearly the shame, nearly the outcast of, being in recovery that there was in 1995.
Yeah.
There weren't nearly as many people talking about, I got sober. There weren't nearly as many famous people talking about it. I mean, we could sit right here and probably rattle off 10 or 15 people that are famous that we know are in recovery.
Pretty quick, yeah.
And I wonder what is the long-term impact of that? And I wish that I went to Yana more, or probably went to more in-person meetings than I do, to see how that's possibly helped.
I guess in the whole recovery community, I mean, just the more the merrier.
Mm-hmm.
The more legs of the stool, the stronger it gets. Just get 3, 4, 5, 10 legs, and this stool is never going to get knocked over. I think the downside of it has been that it's harder to get kind of other 12-step communities to network together. The people who are getting some success and like Celebrate, NA, or other programs, they can get really. What I see is
tribal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely just like and kind of elitist too. Like this is what worked for me, so therefore it's the grail. It's like, man, there's a lot of stuff. Like this is not the only show in town. There's a lot of things that are working. So the upside is there's more people involved, there's more people to lean on. But the downside is there's less kind of communication so far. And maybe that's going to change, but it just seems to be that there's more kind of isolationism amongst the different programs right now. So
that's interesting. So when I was living in Oxford House here in Jackson, I went to both AA and NA meetings because I had some housemates that went to AA and some went to NA.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to have a car, and so I would try to accommodate by going to different meetings. And there certainly is some tribalism and othering of the various modalities of recovery.
Yeah.
Maybe we ought to have a big picnic.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'll tell you what, for people that don't know this, if you say I'm sober at an NA meeting, those people get butthurt about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They get put all the way out.
Yeah. Yeah. If you say,
you're supposed to say clean.
Oh, yeah.
In NA.
Thinking about just the ecosystem of recovery in Jackson, I mean, what Jackson is for Mississippi. A lot of people throw a lot of shade on Jackson just because it's got a lot of water woes, a lot of potholes, a lot of downside. Yeah. But I mean, Jackson's a hub, a mecca of recovery. I mean, just in the Fondren area, the reason Rachel and I decided to build Fondren recovery homes in Fondren is just because there's so many 12-step meetings right there. I mean, you got 4801, you've got Yana, you've got St. James, you've got, I mean, you've got 10 a day in this one little area. You go to the coast, you don't have 10 up and down the whole coast. And we've got more just in this one little spot. So Jackson, whether it wants to be or not, is going to continue to be a growing hub of recovery because people are coming here to get and stay sober. They're coming here just because there's so many meetings, there's so many avenues, there's so many IOPs and PHPs and different therapists.
What is a PHP?
Partial hospitalization program.
What
it
is
can
it?
sometimes be confused with physician's health plan, which is going to be a doctor's, an LJAP kind of similar. But PHP is like this is a partial hospitalization program. And so it would be like a IOP on steroids.
I got you.
So a treatment center, rather than having beds for somebody, would say, we're going to bring these people in every day for really hands-on treatment. We're going to send them to like a sober living environment at night so we don't have to house them. So they can grow their program, by a multiple overnight instead of having to go build barracks or housing or whatever on campus.
And the oversight that comes with it.
Exactly. Yeah, they can just leverage all that out. So Brentwood's doing it. Defina Wellness is growing huge in the PHP programs. It's kind of a newer thing in other places, and it's just now happening here. With all that, it's just attracting more and more people. There's more and more opportunities for people to get treatment, affordable treatment, especially with the Affordable Care Act, and being open with different medical plans. So it's where it is now. I only see it growing. That's why I went on Facebook the other day and I was just like, man, if anybody wants to figure out how to open a sober living home, I'll show you how to do it. Like, it's not big. And someone's like, why would you do that, man? Like, isn't that your biz? It's like, dude, there's so much need for it. There's going to be more. Like, and we need places to send people after they're done with that initial. Like, we're the fresh out of treatment. I don't know which way I'm going. Let me find a job. Let me go to some meetings. But after 3-6 months of that, a year, you're going to be looking for something else. But you're probably still not going to be looking for your own place. You know, there could be a third phase sober living or a group. You know, anything. So, people are going to be coming here more and more and more because the more people come, the more the programs are going to grow. The more the programs are going to grow, the more people are going to come. It's just that virtuous cycle. It's just
If
gonna
you build
keep
it,
growing.
they will come.
It's coming.
Yeah.
So.
You know, once upon a time, you know, when there was Baptist had a treatment center here, a large one for adults and kids.
You and I both went through that. I went to like in 97.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you went to in the village.
We're Baptist brothers.
That's
Yes.
it.
In so many ways. So many ways.
I know it, man. So good.
But to just talk about like how much the treatment has changed what they're doing now versus what we went through at Baptist. That was a year-long treatment. I was there for 10 months.
Yeah.
The age of 16 years old, I went for 10 months in that treatment center.
And it still didn't work.
You know, but it gave me a foundation for me to always look back and say that did have some, like that could have worked if I'd stuck with it. I always was able to, and I did stay clean for about 2 years after that, just on the efficacy of that, the strength of that program. Like I didn't do anything else after that. I went to some meetings and I kind of hung out, but then I moved out to Texas. You know, I didn't have any support program. It fell apart. But that program at Baptist was amazing, man. You spend a month in the hospital, eating ice cream, reading First Step pamphlets, you know, just walk around in a blue suit.
Smoking indoors.
Smoking indoors. What could be better? Then you go out to the village and they're kind of watching you. They got you on a leash. You're not doing a whole lot. But I mean, we're meeting with counselors. They're bussing in sponsees. They had house managers that were all helping us. That was like a month or two of that. And then you get into like second phase where you're doing more and more stuff.
You get a job.
Man, yeah.
I worked at Mazzio's in Clinton.
Yeah, Zan's Diner.
Zan's.
Yeah, the floating burger. Yeah.
Out there on Lakeland.
They had one in Clinton.
That looks like the 1950s
Yeah.
vibe thing.
And,
yeah.
and I'd worked at Rocket City Diner when I was like 14 years old, and I told them that, and they were like, oh, my God, will you please come? You know about the 50s Diners theme? I was like, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was slinging Reubens, like Philly cheesesteaks, floating fries. I had it all. I knew the lingo. I knew Peaches and Bubbles and all the waitresses' names already. It was amazing. Yeah.
How long do you think it will take to completely normalize Jackson as a recovery hub? Or maybe I asked that the wrong way. How can we increase Jackson's attraction outside of Jackson? Because what I'm thinking of is Copac once had this hella thriving marketing thing going on. And I remember going to meetings in Jackson in the late 90s, and people were coming here from all over the place.
Yeah.
There were lots of people here from New York, New Jersey, all up the East Coast. And then when Copac went kaput, so did that marketing thing. I wonder if any other treatment centers are trying to do that, like defining wellness. I don't know.
I think just the more games in town, the better. Because that's what happened is when Copac went through a sea change or something, you know, changed in the way they get paid, or an insurance program decided to quit going long with treatment, they stopped this pipeline of people wanting to come to Jackson because it just dried up. So I think the more people that are coming, you know, the more treatment centers, the more treatment options, and then the more, I mean, sober living just in Jackson is huge right now. When you take the Oxford House, Linwood House, there's a lot of houses too that nobody really knows about that are just, you know, Sally from the women's meeting has a house, you know, Teresa from there's a lot of different. So the more I think, you know, it's just, like I said, just more legs of that stool. It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to continue to grow, but I want to see more programs, different stuff. Like one thing I really enjoy doing is going to the dojo and doing the meditation stuff. And it's not 12-step. It's not anything. It's just straight up. It's kind of some Zen Buddhist stuff. There's some readings, but it's just.
Which dojo?
Is that at Wolf?
By Wolf. Yeah. Yeah. Like it's been tremendous for me, man. My mind never stops. Like my mind, like, I mean, I wake up and it's racing. Just going. I woke up this morning thinking, we're going to talk about, I haven't seen, last time I saw Drew was at the funeral. I hope he's okay. It's like 2:30 in the morning, you know? I better get up. I don't know. Should I get up? No, I'm going to go back to sleep. So like some meditation where it's like, let's just let these thoughts come and go and see what happens. I mean, just sitting still for 5 minutes is like a workout, dude. I've accomplished something.
Well, I've had a monumental change in my thought process about these things. I used to believe that you had to go to meetings and that you had to completely fill your mind with recovery readings and materials to the exclusion of other things.
Mm-hmm.
And I have now learned that, or believe that AA doesn't just equip you with the ability to process more AA approved literature.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you an opportunity to go explore other things
Mm-hmm.
and to get benefits from other things that maybe fall outside the purview of AA authorized literature. For
Yeah.
example, mindfulness meditation and
Mm-hmm.
going to a dojo and listening to Tibetan throat singing,
Mm-hmm.
humming bowls.
Have you been to Magnolia, Nick Tonhan's place
The
up
thing
in
up to the
Batesville?
Delta,
Yeah.
I hadn't been. I've wanted to go.
I've been a couple times, man. It's
Was it you that was telling me about that thing?
We've talked about it a
Yeah,
few
yeah.
times.
super cool, man.
Maybe we should take a field trip.
We should.
Take the podcast on the road.
Awesome. Yeah.
When is it?
You can go anytime. I mean, but every Saturday, every Sunday, they're going to have a like a half day for newcomers. They offer weekend retreats and they offer longer retreats, but they want you to come out for this afternoon to kind of get because it can be intense, man. Like just sitting cross-legged for 15 minutes. You've never done it. It's like this is tough. There's a discipline. It's called a discipline for a reason. I mean, like you got to practice it. But like the couple times I've been out there, they've started each day with just a little bit of like talking and some singing, and then we do like this 20-minute meditation walk, 30-minute meditation walk. Just really like the guy says, when you walk, just let your feet, kiss the ground and think about where you're going. And thank the ground.
It's the real thing.
It's the real deal, man. I'm just like, I mean, for someone like you know me, Drew. It's like this is out of this world, man.
Yeah.
It was cool. So.
What did you take away from that has lasted with you?
That's something I've been doing my whole life, just as simple as breathing. I've never, ever focused on. And just how many things I've done my whole life, just over and over again, habitually, whether it's snapping in anger or just saying things off the cuff, not using restraint. I've been doing my whole life and never think about it. Never really just thinking about it. When you breathe in, you breathe all the way in. And then when I breathe out all the way out. Like, I mean, and how strange it gets when I start trying to think about it. But like I've been doing it, but if I could just focus on those ins and outs and just let everything be observed instead of have to participate or change or manipulate something, it just we said was it being a human being rather than a human doing. It's like that's crazy to me.
Yeah,
just to be and be okay with it.
Some of the best advice I've ever gotten, what is his name? Older black guy. He's a counselor at Harbor House. And I was in his office belly aching about something. I don't remember what. And I was like, I don't know. I don't remember what the topic was, but I said, I just don't know what to do. And he said, look, you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And look, this has been knocking on 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I still think about that. Because I can get so in my own mind and spun around and what's the best thing? I've got to make the best decision. I've got to do this. I've got to do it. What about this? What about that? Weighing all these potential consequences and outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think maybe that's my ticket. Maybe that's the suggestion. Maybe I should just do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. Because I think that we come kind of default programmed to think, I can do something. I should be doing something. Doing nothing is lazy. Doing nothing is, this is how I'm going to evidence my care about this thing is I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
And sometimes doing nothing is the best way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we're geared to solve problems. We want to solve the problems, and it's difficult to just kind of sit or it's difficult for me when, I know that something needs to get done, and there's a clear path to a solution to get that done. It's very difficult for me to just sit and really think about maybe sometimes play the tape through and kind of, okay, well, how is this action going to negatively affect or positively affect the future? And it is difficult for me to kind of just sit in that. And I think that like with a lot of things that are difficult, it takes practice. And I think the more that we practice it, I think the better we get at it.
That's a good point. A discipline. To change gears, though, I want to hop onto MAT because I know something about this that I think everybody could benefit from, especially our brothers and sisters in recovery. So not too terribly long ago, we had a client show up at our law firm, and she was having a custody boondoggle in a court, in a jurisdiction around here. And she was having it held over her head that she was still on Suboxone. And my first thought was, hey, look, I think the judge really needs some education here that for this person to be on Suboxone is, in the recovery world, a victory.
Right.
She's gainfully employed, has meaningful relationships. I think at this time she was married, had gotten a job. Her husband had gotten a job, gotten a house, gotten this, gotten that. Like, had seen a lot of the promises come true for her. And plainly, the judge was unmoved by these facts. And to the judge, that she was on Suboxone was a crutch and something worthy of criticism. Not that she had been on Suboxone ever, but that she was still on it, because she had been on it for a few years at this point. And so we had to kind of hold her hand and say, look, this particular custody problem is not going to improve unless you can get off Suboxone. And it was the first time I was confronted with that. And it was good to know, because at least now I know how this judge feels about Suboxone. Like, you can be on it for a little bit, but this ain't going to be a forever solution. So for the people out there that are on MAT, medically assisted therapy, medically assisted treatment, it's not a forever solution. And I don't know that every judge feels the way that this one does, but they do tend to run in herds. You know, the judges all kind of think similarly. So what have you seen? You're a little closer to the boots on the ground, owning a sober living house or two.
Yeah. So in the sober living business that we have, we have about 60 beds, and we keep them about
60
beds.
How many houses?
I think it's about nine houses.
No kidding.
Yeah.
What is the census?
Within MAT or just the overall?
Just overall.
I mean, you know, people need a place to go when they get out of treatment. Sober living is becoming a part of a treatment plan. You know, most therapists or most clinicians, whenever you come out of treatment, are saying, you know, have you got a sponsor? Have you got a home group? Have you got some sober living stuff? Are you dealing with IOP? Are you doing a PHP program? Because the days of just like, okay, you're detoxed, you've done a half of 4 steps, you go, like, that's most clinicians, that are worth the shit are making sure that you got someplace to go, because just spinning you around and, you know, saying, hey, here's your care package, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, but a very easy thing to do that we're seeing is say, here's a prescription for a drug that's going to make you, you know, not crave. And if you do use, you're not going to get high. And that can be a very powerful weapon, you know, to use. It can be, I would say, a strong tool to use to stay sober. It's very, very helpful. But right after people get out of treatment and they end up in either our community or some other community 2 or 3 months later, they're not dealing with the treatment center. They're not dealing with the clinician or the doctor that put them on this stuff. So they're pretty much just out on their own, trying to figure out when might be the right time to either wean or to change drugs, to change some kind of treatment plan. They're pretty much on their own, which, you know, as only doctors can change prescriptions. That means if I decide to take myself off of I should not be deciding to take myself off of medicine. I should always be talking to a doctor about it. And so it's not a matter of like, oh, you should or shouldn't, or they should or shouldn't. Nobody should or shouldn't. You got to have a freaking license to change medicine, people. You know, and if I'm changing my own medicine, I'm acting like a doctor. So I shouldn't tell somebody they should get off medicine. They shouldn't tell themselves they should get off medicine. They should be working with an addictionologist that understands what this stuff is and helps them move forward. And that's not happening because you're gone from treatment. You're gone from the insurance pay, clinician holding your hand. Now it's you paying the rent each month and trying to go to work and go to 12-step meetings. And the only thing that's kind of keeping you together maybe is this Suboxone or some other kind of treatment, and you're on your own. And I don't like that. I feel like it's overprescribed and then undermanaged on the back end.
Maybe we need to figure out a way, or they need to figure out a way to have more oversight in this step down period. Because it is so tough to get out of treatment. It's like, all right, boom. All right, now you agreed you were going to go to 90 and 90 and get a sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
All right, good luck with that. That's tough.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough.
It is, but it also, there comes a point where, like, what the solution is. You know what you have to do, and are you going to do it or are you not? You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
I knew what I was supposed to be doing and how to get sober and stay sober since I was 18 years old when I went to my first meeting, and I'm 40 now. And I'm just now coming up on 4 years. I've known the solution that whole entire time.
Yeah.
But I wasn't willing to do it. So it gets to a point where, okay, the solution. What are you going to do this time? Are you going to do something different? Or are you going to stick with what you've done for years and years and years and get the exact same damn results?
Well,
like I did.
I think that's the benefit of the sober living community, because there is some accountability there.
Yeah, and you can work through that.
Yeah. Yeah, and some peer pressure. So, hey, man, you got this. Let's go to a meeting. Let's hang out. You can stay sober today. That's kept me sober. Like when that experiment that I did on Taylor Street, that sober living home when I'd moved out of your place and went and bought that house. I mean, like, that kept me sober plenty of times. Just seeing guys fall off or having people to hang out with. I mean, there's no doubt that the whole, like, the opposite of addiction is connection. Like, that's not made up. That's not just a pithy little thing to say. I mean, it's true. We're connected. Yeah, we're connected, and we're around people that we know and trust, and we're doing this together. We stay sober. We get isolated, and the disease cuts us off. There's no chance.
No chance.
I think real quick though, I think like when you said it best. You said MAT is a tool. It's absolutely a tool, and I think if it's used properly, it can save lives.
Absolutely.
But if it's also if it's abused, which alcoholics and addicts, we're pretty good at abusing things sometimes. I'm just gonna throw that out there. But I think if it's used properly, that it can genuinely save lives. But I remember when I was at Copac in 2006. One of my roommates was on Suboxone, and he was getting off of whatever the case may be. He was forced to get off of this stuff. And I stayed up with him all night, him just rolling back and forth on the couch.
It's brutal,
He said it's 10 times worse than coming off of the opiates themselves.
Yeah.
So, is that something that, that's hard to go through, man. My heart went out to that guy. I'd never seen pain that intense. So I think it's a tool that can be used, but I also think that it can be a deadly tool.
I mean, I'm going to call a shot here. I'm going to say that in the next couple of years, we're going to see more and more lawsuits against Suboxone, and we're going to see a replay of the opioid thing. We're going to see more and more settlements going out because we're seeing some serious adverse consequences from Suboxone right now. I think there's maybe 700 cases out right now for like
of what?
Suboxone.
Like, I mean, what happens to them?
Dental damage. There's a lot of adverse side effects, but they just didn't test this stuff. And I think the most egregious thing about this stuff is like the federal government comes up with this stuff and uses like a $70 million fund to figure out to get this thing going, and then hands it out to all these pharmacy companies and says, "Hey, we've gotten this going. Now y'all roll with it." And the best one pretty much gets this Suboxone, gets to sell this stuff under the banner of opioid crisis relief.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I just don't trust a drug dealer, dude. I'm sorry, like, period. Like,
whether you have FDA approval or not.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we're seeing complaints from the people around us, and we're reading articles and we're seeing stuff, and it's going to be the same thing. They're going to be like, "Oh, oops, we got you strung out on something else." And sure, it's helped. That whole line's in the book that we read that says science hasn't one day accomplished it, but one day. And we are science is doing what science does. Solving addiction is a big issue, and people want to do it, and there's a lot of money in it, and there's a lot of people who suffer from it. So there's a tremendous motivation to work towards it. Science is going to continue to do what science does. It solves. It's going to try different things, and there's going to be 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And I think Suboxone is a 2-step forward, 1 step back thing. It's helping a lot of people. It's saving a lot of lives.
I just don't think that science is ever going to be able to pull off figuring out a way for me to shoot meth, for days on end.
Don't give up hope, Drew.
Yeah.
And to use a DeWalt drill to screw every window and door shut in my house. I just or put the 2x4 under the attic because they're up there.
I remember those days.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're gonna be able to pull that off.
We'll see.
And then do the occasional heroin because you want to ease it on down.
You're right. Yeah, somebody asked me, like, do you drink non-alcoholic beer? I was like, yeah, right after I do some non-opioid heroin and snort a line of non.
It wasn't because it smelled good.
Yeah, come on, man. Drinking non-alcoholic beer.
What's the point?
Right.
You're holding on to that idea that, I'm not alcoholic. It's just, maybe the amount of alcohol was wrong. And I don't know. I've never liked the taste of alcohol,
Now,
period.
I'll say this, though. I don't miss doing drugs, and I certainly don't miss drinking. But good Pinot Noir and good cheddar cheese is pretty damn good. Like, that does taste good. Science could pull that off.
Yeah. But then you got to play the tape through. How long is it going to be until you're, back shooting meth in your arm?
That's one of the things that science has to fix.
Right.
Yeah. Every time we hear that, I just say to myself, go science.
Some measure of guarantee that I won't be, at the Oyo.
Yeah. The Mustang.
And the Mustang. God, those hotels on 55 or something.
Yeah.
Every time I ride by there, I think, what were you doing in there? How did I not get killed in there? One of these things sticks out amongst us. Which one is the oddball here?
Like Waldo.
Yeah.
There he is. Going back inside.
It's a miracle. It really is.
Well, what do you guys think about, Drew, this is kind of fresh on your mind right now, with, the things that you've gone through with your family this week. How do you, let's talk a little bit about how we, handle grief and loss and anger and confronting those issues in sobriety. What does that look like for you guys?
So my mother died about a week ago. I think 8 days ago. And I am figuring out how to process grief and fear. Like, as odd as this sounds, you feel alone in some ways. All right, so now I have no parents. I'm down to 0 parents. And I got to experience my father dying in recovery, and he just died. He wasn't expected to die. He had a surgery and died on the operating table. And then my mother had cancer and just kind of got sicker and sicker and sicker. And eventually just, the cancer got her. If I got to pick, I would pick the die by surprise. But, Mama stuck it out for a few years. She had ovarian cancer. And it's an interesting, I don't know. I'm in the throes of it right now. But I have had good friends and family that have supported me. Certainly my wife has been a real source of support and foundation. And then, I had good talks with Mama right before she died. And I guess since she's not here, I can, she and I didn't always see eye to eye. And we had periods in our life where there was a lot of turmoil. And then after my father died, I really got to live that amends to her and smooth things over. And I'm so grateful for that. And I recognize that my being sober is why I was able to have that, to be there for her and to be able to assist her in meaningful ways is meaningful to me. And excuse me, if it weren't for sobriety, I wouldn't have been able to pull that off. Mm-hmm. So,
Well, if it weren't for sobriety, she would still be taking care of you on her deathbed. But instead, you got to take care of her. What a blessing.
Or she would have excised me altogether. So it's good to be there for my family. And, you know, as I told her not long before she died, hey, look, you know, you did a good job. I've got some sense about me. I can take over from here. And I promised that I would stop cussing as an honor to Margaret. And I've already failed a few times today. But I will work on that.
Progress, not perfection.
Progress, not perfection.
You got this.
So as I move through the grieving process, I will keep everybody posted on how hard it is, or how, you know, was this a difficult week? Was this an easy week? I had to find somebody else to send my Wordle results to every day. So now my aunt gets those instead of Margaret. Nice. Yeah.
What about you, Dave?
Well, you were around when Dad died.
I was.
And I was going through a dark period. I mean, I think I'd just gotten out of another treatment center then. I'd gotten out of a Pine Grove, maybe, you know, a couple week or something. I don't know. I've been in and out so many facilities, but I'd just gotten out, and I got the call, you know, early one morning. It was Christiana, and she's just like, you know, and she didn't mince words, Dad's dead. Just like, and I remember like that immediate kind of like day or two after, it was just like this utter just despair at not being able to clean anything up. Just like, because he was not happy with me. He had not been happy with me for a long time. Nobody was happy. I wasn't happy with me. I was a mess. And like having to go through that, it's taken me a long time, but also like it's immediately just forgiving him for whatever things might have happened, did happen, whatever abuse, whatever trauma. Just like, all right, I got to deal with it now, but I can't really blame him or take it out on him because he's gone.
Yeah.
He's just not here. And so there was a sense of responsibility on myself to really kind of hold up for whatever. You know, there was nobody else to really blame. But dude, I mishandled that. It was epic how bad I went through that. I mean, I remember the first thing I did was I called my boss to get in advance and went and got an 8-ball. You know, I was like, I'm about to go do this stuff, and I need to load up. And I mean, I went to the funeral, and I can't remember anything about it. I mean, it was just, it was just horrible. But as far as like really grieving and really going through it, I didn't do anything. I just drank and drugged all the way through it. And then what little, you know, we read the will, and there was an insurance, you know, check, and everybody got a little something. It wasn't a whole lot, but it was something. And that just threw gasoline on an already raging fire. And it just, I mean, there was 6 months I should have died. I mean, it was horrible. It was just one of the worst, darkest periods of my life to drink and drug through all that and not grieve and not really think about what I felt like or what it meant, or not talking to anybody about it, just finding myself in the bottom of a bottle. And I mean, in that situation, you know, getting locked up saved my life, you know, to really just take me out of that situation and to really put me in a place where I just had to kind of sit with myself, and I couldn't go through $1,000 a day of dope, you know, like, okay, I'm sitting here. But it wasn't until the back end when I started working the 12 steps with a sponsor and with some people who cared about me, when I was able to actually kind of go through some of that stuff. And I had to do grief 5 years later. And it was very, very strange, but I think it kind of worked out just like it was supposed to, because I wasn't ready to do that work then. I couldn't do that work. I mean, I couldn't do anything.
Isn't it amazing, though, how we see? So in AA, you hear, you know, good things happen to drug addicts and alcoholics that stay sober. And if you go to Celebrate Recovery, you hear, and I don't know what Bible verse it is, about, you know, he makes all things work together for the good, all things. And so those two sentiments are exactly the same, that if you stick with it and are, in our case, sober-minded and working towards some sort of emotional healing, that you'll get something, you can find good in it. How long, I wonder, did you think it would take for you ever to say there was something good about going to the Hooskow? But here you are, making a connection between how that saved me.
Yeah.
And what a beautiful mindset to have. If I can always, and Daniel is probably the best human I know on this. Like, I sat here one day and watched it in live action. he's trying to put up. Were you trying to put up that green screen behind where you're sitting right now? And like he was toiling over this, and it wasn't working. And he was like, okay, what's God teaching me about this? And I've seen things that have happened in his life that he probably would not want to be duplicated. And his first reaction was, okay, what lesson can I learn from this? What kind of lesson is God teaching me? And I have tried to tell myself, be more like that.
Right.
When something happens that I don't care for, what can I learn from this? Because God, is that so much better and so much more profitable than, woe is me, my life is so bad.
Yeah, that's
the universe
it right
is
there.
against me.
That's it right there. That's why I do that, because I've been to enough meetings, I've been to enough events, enough everything with recovery base. And what do you hear when someone comes in and they're talking about something that was very difficult that happened in their life, right? A death in the family, a murder, something traumatic, something awful. And then what do they say? Once these people have had time to process the grief, whether it be 6 months down the line or 5 years down the line, what do you hear them say? Well, had that not happened, this wouldn't have happened, and this wouldn't have happened, and now I'm here. So I just started thinking, okay, well, why not just start to identify why beat myself up with all of the bullshit of turmoil and wrestling with these things. Why did this happen?
have to happen?
Why did this happen? Why not just, I like things easy, right? In my soul, I like the easier, softer way. So I was just like, okay, well, instead of being a whiny bitch, why don't I just jump to what these guys have learned already? And what I hear every single time I something like this comes up. Well, you know what? If this wouldn't have happened, this wouldn't have happened. And I can't imagine, I can't believe where my life is today. Why not just jump to that? So when anything difficult goes on in my life, like, honestly, my first thought, my first process, and this is just from practice. I wasn't born this way. This is just practice from what I've heard in meetings and what I've learned in meetings. Okay, something difficult is going on right now. There is no question in my mind that God is not going to put anything in my path that I can't deal with. So anytime that something difficult is going on in my life, I learn and grow, period. End of story. I don't grow well when I'm comfortable. So when something difficult is going on, I learn and grow. Okay, so what's the next step? Let's engineer this. What's the next step? Okay. There's something that's arise in my body, in my soul, in my heart that is not right. I'm activated in some way. So why not try to identify exactly what that is? And then trust God's process and trust that he's going to get me through this. I'm going to have to work hard on the emotions, on the whatever I'm going through. I'm going to have to work, but God's going to take me through there. So why not bypass all the BS and just jump right into the solution? So, and I've even thought about this with cancer. If I go to the doctor and I've always been terrified of cancer for some reason, it's just something, but since I've kind of worked more on this, I've been thinking about this a lot. What's going to happen when I go into Dr. Shealy's office and he says, Daniel, there's a mass, we really want you to go get tested. I've thought about that over and over and over again and been terrified, and my life has been petrified by that fear. But today, genuinely, my first thought was, I'm going to make those fucking nurses laugh. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make them laugh. I'm going to tell them that everybody's here. They're dying to get in here, and I'm just going to make them laugh. And I'm gonna get through this, whether I die or not. God's gonna put me in someone's life that I'm gonna be able to brighten them in some way, shape, or form, even if I'm on my deathbed. So with that perspective, what can hurt me?
Yeah, look, I hear you.
We got a friend, Billy Wynn.
Yes,
and seeing him do that last quarter of life that he had, and continue carry the message to the last. I mean, they were having meetings at his house that he was wanting people to come over, and you knew if you were lucky enough to be in one of those rooms, it wasn't so much because Billy needed the message carried to him, is that he was desperate to carry the message just a little more. Like that was what was keeping him going, and to see him not use because if I'm sentenced to death, what better time to let all my defects loose and tell everybody what I think of them, and instead to go back into servant mode and nope, I'm going to dig in. I'm going to try some more. I'm going to carry this thing to last. I mean,
Billy was an angel.
Yeah. To see that. And I'm pissed off that my cell phone bill went up. I'm pissed
Right.
off. I'm thinking about drinking because this chick I don't even like doesn't want to talk to me anymore. Whatever the problem of the day was, to see him deal with that with dignity and grace and just keep walking and keep carrying, like, dude, get back to work, David. So there was a guy whose wife had died in a car wreck. Bill, he's still a member, but he I was like 6 months sober, and this guy was his wife had just died, and he was sitting there in a meeting, and I'm just like, the worst thing you could possibly think of ever happened, and he's in there surrounded by his 12-step friends. And it was just like, once more, another story, another anecdote of me not, like, doesn't matter what I've got going on. There's somebody in here who's got it a whole lot worse, and they're still doing the deal.
Oh yeah, we've all heard that thing. Like if you go and if you get in a room and you have everybody say what's wrong in their life,
Yeah.
you're gonna pick your problems
Yeah.
over theirs. Yeah,
You got how many kids?
don't I know it?
What, you got 17 now?
Yeah. Blessed.
Man,
Blessed. Speaking of kids, I'm coming over here and Abigail texted me. So WYD. Said, I'm going to hang out with your dad, going to do a podcast. She said, slay.
So yeah, we're all watching a movie one time, and Abigail whooped out. I don't know who it was, but of the character on the screen, she said, "Shawty be a baddie."
Yeah.
And I said, "Honey, come on now."
We sent you to good schools.
Come on.
Yeah. Come on.
Come on. Shawty is a baddie. But don't say it.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And they did so well, getting up and at your mother's service,
Yeah.
Abigail reading and Andrew reading and doing the deal.
Look, you should have seen Atticus when the topic of having them read came up. He's like, "Do I have to?"
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was going to shit in his pants.
Yeah.
I was like, "No, buddy, you don't have to, man." He would have died up there.
Yeah. They did it though. So
Oh, Margaret would have been so proud.
she would have. And I want to say something about your mom. Like your mom, I wanted to be there to support you, and I wanted to be there to support the kids. I wanted them to know that they were loved. But also, like, there was something about your mom that just, there was never a fake smile from her. And even look at those photos that were sitting up. I mean, she was a person that just always made me feel good. It didn't matter what was going on. If I was relapsing, if I had dropped the damn dinner plate, whatever, just she always made me feel so good.
Well, look, and I don't say this, I mean, this is dead serious. She really did love you. And every time she made gumbo, she said, David said my gumbo was good. Like, that was a true badge of honor that she had gotten that compliment from you. Every time she made the gumbo. And it is good.
Yeah.
But she was proud that you liked it.
And I loved her. She was great. And yeah, we're all going to go through these losses and these trials and tribulations. And I hate that you and your brother and the rest of your family are going through it. But I want you all to know that she was loved. And Danny was loved. Golly, I'm looking at photos of I can't help but feel alive. And
They
feel
were good.
Love when I see
had good
them.
parents,
Yeah,
no
you
doubt.
did.
I was very lucky. And I am glad. Like, the first thing I think is, why didn't I realize that when I was younger?
That's the deal. That's it.
But now I try to employ the Daniel method. Let's get straight to something. Let's not get mired down in the bad and say, I'm glad I realized it when I did, or became truly appreciative of it. I think that's a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
Because it's, your parents are doing the best they can. I think to myself all the ways I probably let my kids down and giving them something to talk to their therapist about. But, most of the time I'm doing the best I can.
And that was what I had to come to with Dad. I mean, my dad had his own issues. I mean, his dad was abusive. I mean, they slept on abandoned buses and front porches and went to boarding schools and was left out in the cold plenty of time. My dad had a lot of issues that I didn't really know about until, later on. And he was. It might not have been perfect, but he was doing the best he could with what he had. And I had to respect that. And but you know what? He brought me in this world. He didn't take me out. He could have.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Dang.
yeah.
I'm not crying. I'm just, my throat. Cooperating.
We won't tell anyone, Drew.
I've cried. I'm not crying right now, though. I got it held together. Well, I feel good about our first episode having you here.
Good. Great.
You're easy to talk to.
Yeah. Well, we've been doing this a while.
Been doing it for a minute.
Yeah. We could, you could take all this. We could probably sit, we might even sit here. I don't know what you got going on. But
We can play some Chappelle.
Yeah. Yes. Did you see Chappelle on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
No.
Oh man.
Who was he introducing?
Questlove.
Oh, that makes
Tribe
sense.
Called Quest. Tribe Called Quest. Yeah. So it was cool though. But yes,
I mean, do they really belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
you know,
You got to have. I guess they deserve to be in some kind of Hall of Fame.
yeah, they've been doing it long enough.
The Rap Hall of Fame doesn't sound as
Yeah.
as elite.
So tell me what you're most excited about moving forward, both in Recovery Lab and in your own recovery economy or ecosystem. What are you seeing? What are you looking forward to the most?
So I have been contemplating some goals for the new year, and we had an episode a few weeks ago about that very same thing. And Daniel's making a face at me, the face of I haven't written mine down yet, and I'm here to make him feel better because I haven't eaten. It's okay, man. So I really wanted to focus on things that were kind of in that sweet spot, would require some work and some dedication, but weren't so lofty as to be impossible. And I'm going to report back on that next week. Because I have some professional goals, I have some personal goals. I'm thinking about some of my professional ones right now because I've got a hearing on Tuesday that I need to bone up on some particular rules of evidence for.
Yeah.
And we have a bona fide criminal defense attorney in our office now, and like he's a fantastic lawyer. And getting to learn from how he goes about the practice of law has been a real benefit for me because he practices law in a way that's completely different from how Ernie, the boss man, does.
Right.
They do completely different things. You know, Ernie is the undeniable master of all things real estate, but the flip side to that is Ernie is not the undeniable master of all things rules of evidence or rules of civil procedure because he didn't need to know those things to do what he was doing. And by contrast, Lance, the criminal defense attorney, well, he doesn't have anything to do with rules of civil procedure, but he does know a lot about the rules of evidence. And, you know, that's really where I think that probably is if you're an expert in the rules of evidence, then you are able to be a much more effective attorney in court than somebody who's not as good. So that's one of the things that I really want to bone up on.
What about you, David?
I'm just really excited to see, like I said, this recovery ecosystem kind of develop around. I mean, between the different sober living communities, the different IOPs, I used to really throw some shade on like sober coaching and sober companions, but now that's becoming super in vogue in other places. And I got friends that are coming in from Austin or Tampa or Orlando, or whatever. It's like sober coaching and sober companions that's the deal. And it hadn't happened here yet en masse, but it's gonna happen. I mean, Mississippi, we're 20 years behind everything, right?
Yeah.
Give it a little time.
Brian O'Shea has been knocking at that door for a long time now.
And I know that some people, like the hardcore elitist in certain 12-step programs, just like, you shouldn't be, whatever. They might not enjoy or appreciate, but the reality is it's helpful and people need it and it's going on. And so I'm really interested to be able to observe and kind of see what's going on there, what's going to be happening, and what's my place in it. You know, like I'm a sober guy trying to stay sober. That's the most important thing in my life, is that in my relationships with my family and my community. But being sober is everything. I mean, like if I took a drink or a drug today, I could be homeless in like 9 hours.
9.
You know, just like, and I don't want to go through that. I've built a really, really, and God has blessed me with a tremendous life, a tremendous family. I got a rock star wife, and she was on a podcast with me and Danny a couple months ago. It's just like, you know, I couldn't make this up 15 years ago. So really interested to see how this thing plays out. I think there's going to be some turbulence, like with stuff we were talking about with MAT. I think the Supreme Court ruling saying that being outdoors or being unhoused or being sleeping in public places can now be convictable. I think that's going to throw a lot of pressure on housing, which is what I'm into. It's going to throw a lot of pressure on other places not receiving unhoused people and them all going into certain places. So I think we're going to see even more of an influx of that in Jackson. I'm really enjoying working with Shower Power right now, going out and doing that thing and just seeing the need and seeing it kind of, I mean, it's
Kimberly volunteered with him a few times and found it immensely rewarding.
Yeah. It's strong. It's good. So,
I think what's happened, though, is the pendulum swung too far the other way. I mean, California looks like a zombie wasteland in certain places with the kowtowing to homeless people. I mean, look, I feel bad for those people because I had to sleep in the car a few times. And it's not an easy. I mean, there is a lot of mental illness.
We should get Teresa on, who does Shower Power.
Yeah.
Because we see a lot of this overlap between this unhoused and this addiction stuff. But if you go hang out with those people for if you go sit and do the deal with them for an afternoon, you'll quickly realize that a very small percentage of them are dealing with just addiction only.
Yes.
You don't need to sit there very long to know, like, he sees spaceships, he sees Men in Black, she's the president, you know,
Right.
like it's a lot of mental illness. It's a lot of, and the bottom line is just like our veterans and just like we're not taking care of these people. We're just not taking care of them. I'm not sure how we're supposed to, but to throw them out and to make it illegal for them to be in public places is not the answer that I see, because they're not going away. My close friend, you knew Dave White, you and Christiana both did not like. He was with me one night when I got arrested, and it was a bad situation. He was not a good influence on my life, but the dude suffered from legit paranoid schizophrenia, and he died on the streets of Jackson just this past year. And it was just, he couldn't get the help. He wasn't going to get the help. And I don't know what the solution was. I'm not saying I know what to do, but I also know that that's no way to go, man. You know, down on these streets because you just can't find help or can't. It's just, we live in the greatest country in the world, dude. You know, it's 2025. We have more access to more healthcare, more money, and more stuff than anybody else on the planet. And when this stuff's happening, that's ridiculous. That's crazy. And so that's what I'm excited about is how are communities like this, how are programs like this going to network with other resources and save lives? Because that's what y'all are here for. That's what y'all are really trying to do, is to destigmatize and to bring hope and to save lives.
We need some kind of government grant that'll pay for us to make like a little tiny home village.
Yeah.
I like those tiny homes. I think they're cool.
They're pretty great. They're pretty great. All right, final thoughts, gentlemen. We're about at the hour. Drew, final thoughts?
I'm going to hit David with my two favorite questions.
Do it.
You ready?
I should have known.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do poorly in your recovery?
Honestly, listen. I mean, I hate to even, but I'm always thinking of my retort. Just like in time what we were talking about, you know, meditating and breathing and just, can I just listen? And I've just now started kind of venturing into that, really trying to listen. But I'm even sitting in meetings and I'm always thinking about what the hell I'm going to say next. And like just sitting here with you guys now, just like, let me listen to what Drew's talking about, what Danny's talking about. But listening has been a challenge for me, honestly.
All right. What do you do well in your recovery?
Only thing I've done really, really well and just about every time is keep coming back, regardless of how I feel. I remember when I got fired from Walker's, I was so just, oh God, I got fired. I didn't know what to do with myself, you know? And I was wearing my chef whites and I just walked up to Yana. It was 7:30 in the middle of a shift. And I just walked up. I just keep coming back no matter what. And I sat down in my smelly chef clothes and I stayed for the rest half of the meeting. And it's just like, that's it. No matter what, I go to the nooner, I go to the 5 o'clock, but I always go to the 8 o'clock, you know, that kind of thing. Just keep coming back. That's what I've done.
There we go. That's it.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, this has been a hell of a first episode with our new co-host. Thank you so much for coming, David.
Thank you, guys.
And we'll see you guys all next week on The Recovery Lab.
The Recovery Lab.